The death of a little girl from Central Georgia has people searching for answers about how this happened and why the Division of Children and Family Services didn't step in despite the family's history with the agency. On Monday, a Wilkinson County court ruled there was enough evidence to charge Kaitlyn Yozviak's parents with her death.
Before we get into the details, we do want to warn you they are difficult to listen to, but an important case for this family. Back in August, Katie Horton and Joey Yozviak were both charged with murder and child cruelty in the 12-year-old's death. A GBI investigator testified Monday that Kaitlyn's death likely resulted from a severe lice infestation. Special Agent Ryan Hilton testified that Kaitlyn's primary cause of death was cardiac arrest. The secondary cause was anemia. He said the girl's lice infestation was the worst he'd ever seen and doctors had ever seen, and it may have lasted for years. Hilton said repeated bites lowered her blood iron levels, which likely caused that anemia and may have triggered the heart attack. After hearing the evidence, Judge Brenda Trammell ruled there was enough evidence to charge both parents. Prosecutors plan to ask a Wilkinson County grand jury to indict the couple. Shortly after Kaitlyn's death, people gathered to protest DFACS and ask why they didn't take action in her case. Records obtained by our sister station in Macon show DFACS has some history with the family. Even before Kaitlyn was born, records show two brothers were removed from the home because it was unsanitary. DFACS got involved with the family again when Kaitlyn was born in 2008 because her parents changed their minds about giving her up for adoption. 10 years later, DFACS responded to another report about unsanitary conditions at Kaitlyn's home. One call details a bug infestation in the home, excessive cats, and unsanitary conditions. They took Kaitlyn from the home for 6 days, but eventually she returned.
They responded very quickly to our request that they make this house a fit place to live. That indicated to us that they were in fact capable of caring for Kaitlyn.
Ashlyn Webb with our sister station in Macon spoke to the head of DFACS last week about Kaitlyn's case and whether he feels the agency had some responsibility here.
What would you say to the community saying that DFACS let Kaitlyn down and that you guys dropped the ball?
So I think it's human nature to say if a child dies from abuse or neglect, somebody must have done something wrong. And there's I think a tendency to want to find some reason for it, that somebody could have done something about it. And so that unfortunately is part of our work. What I try to remind folks is that I believe our caseworkers, I believe our staff are dedicated professionals who would not be in this work if they didn't try to do everything they can to save children.
We talked to Tom Rawlings last year about the chances that he planned to make and the changes that he had in line as the new head of DFACS. They included randomly reviewing 300 to 500 cases each month to make sure things are being done correctly and changing the culture of the agency to cut down on disciplinary problems. You can find more coverage of Kaitlyn's case right now on 11alive.com. You'll also find some of our previous investigations on disciplinary issues within DFACS there as well.